How do you know a game is well written? Trying to boil effective storytelling down to a formula is risky in any media, but when it comes to video games, it becomes an especially precarious venture. Oftentimes there's so much going on demanding the players' and developers' attention that plot and character can get lost or marginalized. If you know me, you know that I don't necessarily think this is an entirely bad thing, and many games, to some extent and with varying degrees of success, synthesize the narrative action into the gameplay. While this is a perfectly legitimate approach with the potential to challenge and entertain when done well, it's worth taking a moment to appreciate games who do manage to establish a strong sense of character and world through more traditional narrative vehicles such as dialogue and cinematography. So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite games of all time, Mass Effect. Specifically, we're going to talk about all the little world-building details its opening chapter teaches the player without barely ever spelling any of them out. It's a crash course in show don't tell, and it's done masterfully. But that's like enough out of me, right? Let's just get into it, right? Let's get into it. Let's start the video. Alright, so you fired this puppy up, and as soon as you create a new file, the music lets you know that this game's gonna be kinda creepy. It's got these ominous bubbling synths behind it that weren't even popular yet because Stranger Things wasn't a thing yet. And when you start a new file, you can either use one of the game's pre-made template characters, or you can voluntarily have a 7-hour panic attack trying to figure out what exactly your opinion of brow line depth is? Is this eye-shaped slider like a hyper-subtle metaphor for how we're all flawed? Is that what's going on here? Anyway, the game prompts you to choose your character's backstory. They're all kind of vague, and if you're like me, you might just kind of be like, yeah, whatever, just get this over with. But then...
What about Shepard? She grew up in the colonies.
Whoa, wait.
Humanity needs a hero, and Shepard's the best we've got.
It's nothing groundbreaking, but it lays a foundation for a game in which your choices matter. Alright, so immediately after that, the game hits us with this wall of text. Now flashback to me telling you that the writing in the opening of this game is strong because it doesn't spell things out. And isn't a wall of text kind of the definition of spelling things out? Well, guess what? You don't even need this.
Lisa, I don't need this.
Let's say you don't read this paragraph. Okay, the essential data is the year's 2148, and we discover advanced technology on Mars that jumps our civilization forward. And sure enough, what's one of the first things we see after this text goes away? Oh man, they're flying past Jupiter. Hey Mom, they're flying past Jupiter. Yeah, so things are a little advanced. Now we get this nice little sequence that cuts between your character walking towards the head of the ship and the ship traveling through space. And we get little voiceover snippets of somebody speaking over what sounds like the ship's PA system saying things like,
"The Arcturus Prime relay's in range.
And
Initiating transmission sequence."
In both of the settings we're jumping between, there's the concept of going somewhere, your character walking towards the head of the ship, and wherever it is the ship's traveling. So there's a sense of a destination we're gonna arrive at, and it raises a question in the viewer's mind of like, what's gonna happen, where's this going? Accordingly, the music begins kind of placid and mystical sounding, and it begins to ramp up in intensity. And it begins to ramp up in intensity because we see this. And the game mostly leaves us in the dark on it. The pilot's voiceover lines mention a relay, and you might guess by its design that it's of alien origin because it doesn't look anything like our ship. Of course, that's assuming that our ship itself is also not of alien design. But I think it's fair to point out that the ship's design looks more familiar to us of what we expect a ship functionally to look like. Whereas this thing with its almost eye-like rotating rings doesn't really indicate what it is just by looking at it. I also want to point out that there's a nice little synchronicity between the two settings in that when the camera swings around and we see our character for the first time, she's looking off camera at something, and then in the other setting it cuts immediately to this giant thing floating out in space, which we don't know what it is. And so it's a unity between the two sequences where the revelation of one thing, which is your character's face, points towards the revelation of the other thing in the other sequence. It also kind of puts us in the character's shoes, that they're looking expectantly or with concern at the thing that we're looking at with wonder and confusion. Okay, so the sequence comes to a head, and then...
Thrusters, check. Navigation, check. Internal emissions sync engaged. All systems online. Drift, just under 1500K.
1500 is good. Your captain will be pleased.
I hate that guy.
Nihilus gave you a compliment. So you hate him.
You remember to zip up your jumpsuit on the way out of the bathroom? That's good. I just jumped us halfway across the galaxy and hit a target the size of a pinhead. So that's incredible.
Alright, so there's a lot going on here. I'm gonna break it down into like a bullet point list so we can keep it all straight, okay? Alright, so just by this alien dude standing there and talking to them like he's their coworker, we learn that aliens are a normal part of this world. This is confirmed by the human character's response to him. Notice that the pilot says, "I hate that guy." We also learn that the pilot is either very skilled or he thinks he's very skilled.
I just jumped us halfway across the galaxy and hit a target the size of a pinhead. So that's incredible.
But our position as viewers, as newcomers into this world who didn't know what that giant alien relay floating out in space was, makes us inclined to trust that he is skilled, because he managed to use something big and intimidating and foreign to us as though it was just part of his daily work routine. Now, depending on the option you choose here, you can either learn that your character outranks these two,
That's enough. Your soldiers act like it.
or you can learn that specters are some sort of elite something. We're not really sure what, but the term specter is given this kind of ominous charge to it.
Besides, specters are trouble. I don't like having them on board. Call me paranoid.
You're paranoid. The Council helped fund this project. They have a right to send someone to keep an eye on their investment.
Yeah, that is the official story. But only an idiot believes the official story.
They don't send specters on shakedown runs.
This conversation closes out with a group of people who seem to have been working together for some time, teasing each other like coworkers who have been at the same job together for years would.
Better brace yourself, sir. I think Nihilus is headed your way.
He's already here, Lieutenant. Tell Commander Shepard to meet me in the comm room for a debriefing.
You get that, Commander?
Great. You pissed the captain off and now I'm gonna pay for it.
Don't blame me. The captain's always in a bad mood.
Only when he's talking to you, Joker.
This is important for a high-concept sci-fi like this because there's going to be a lot of new ideas thrown at us, and in a story like that, you want something to ground you. You want something familiar and basic, with all these like teleporters and warp drives and alien race names and specters and comlink buoys. You want some kind of basic human element underlying all of that, and this first sequence of dialogue gives us that. It gives us that very effectively and very naturally. It lets us know that in spite of the swelling cinematic soundtrack and giant floating alien teleporter, this is all just business as usual for these people. As important as this exchange is in establishing this game as an inherently human, relationship-driven game, it'll be even more important later. We'll get to that. All right, so that does it for part one. I'll see you in part two.